You know, I always love me a good countdown. Listen, good morning, or I was going to say good morning, good evening to you. I'm Persia Nicole from 92Q. You can check some good vibes and a whole lot of power with me Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Tonight, I'm excited about this. We're going to have a special ICare live discussion all about hope after the storm and engage in a faith community and the conversation about domestic violence. This is important for our community, important for our culture, and I'm so excited to be a part of this tonight. I want to send a huge shout out to our sponsor, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, also known as MONSE, for always helping us bring awareness and promoting positive lifestyle in the Baltimore area. Has some phenomenal guests joining me tonight to talk about the storm and, of course, helping us get through this storm, because we're definitely going to do that tonight. And, of course, every single day after that. Reverend Beverly, Rev Bev. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. It's good to be with you tonight, Persia. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being a part of this. Next up, let's bring on in Reverend Dr. Sakima Romero-Chandler.
Chandler, yes. Sakima Romero-Chandler. Thanks, Persia. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
So excited to have you a part of this. And lastly, let's bring on Ashley Rivera.
Hey, Ash. Hi, thank you, Persia. I'm honored to be here with everyone this evening. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, it's going to be a great time. And as you are on this live, wherever you're watching from, you can ask questions, chime in on the conversation. If you need any help, make sure you get in the chat and to say, hey, like, where could I get this resource from, or whatever it might be. Because tonight, our goal is to make sure we're helping you and we're giving back to our community and showing that there are so many different resources out here. I want those watching to get familiar with you before we start. Let's start with you, Rev Bev. Who is Rev Bev, and who are you representing to?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Reverend Beverly Reddy. I am representing Ishshah's Place, which is a nonprofit organization that I started for serving survivors of domestic violence. I am also a minister on staff at the Mount Lebanon Baptist Church. And there we also have a domestic violence ministry serving survivors and community as well.
Okay, Ashley, let's get to know you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ashley Rivera. I don't have a really cool nickname, but you can find me at MONSE, which is the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. Here, we really focus on connecting the community with some amazing organizations and amazing resources, and really sharing the idea of the co-production of public safety here in Baltimore.
Yes. Reverend Chandler.
Yes, of course. I think Rev Bev really set the standard with the cool name, and then here we go, just not having cool names to follow up. But so I'm Reverend Dr. Sakima Romero-Chandler, affectionately called Reverend Kim by my friends and family and those in ministry that serve with me. I am here representing both Ishshah's Place and also Romero Conway Howard Consulting Group and Wayman AME Church. So I work with Rev Bev on the board at Ishshah's Place, where we do phenomenal work with women. You'll hear about that a little bit later. And also, I've started a domestic and family violence ministry where at Wayman AME Church in Frederick, Maryland, we also serve women and families affected by family violence. I am an author, researcher, and contributor to work on intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and most of all, a child of God. And I really love doing this work where we talk about the intersectionality. So we'll talk quite a bit more this evening, but really, I'm just so happy to be here with all of you.
Yes. So as you can see, we have some great panelists that will help all of us get through the storm. So many different resources going to be given tonight. So make sure you stick around. We're here for 60 minutes. So you have a whole lot of time to jot down some notes. And again, don't forget to get in the chat if you have any questions too. We'll pop it up on the screen to get an answer for you. Ashley, for those who aren't familiar with MONSE, can you talk about the huge importance, because it is important for neighborhood health and safety for our mayor's office?
Absolutely. Thank you so much again, Persia, for really bringing this conversation, the space to have this conversation. It is so important that Baltimore City knows who MONSE is, who the faces of the team are, and our mission. And our goal really is to bring folks who've experienced trauma, whether it's directly or indirectly, to their next step of healing, whatever that looks like. We want to meet you where you're at. We want to connect you with that best resource for you. And whether you're within that faith-based community or not, but today we get to have this awesome space with these beautiful, very, very knowledgeable women who have invested into that faith-based community, from youth all the way up to folks in leadership. So today, my goal within the prevention team of intimate partner violence really is to talk about that intersection of how domestic violence or intimate partner violence, from the teen youth perspective all the way up to married with grandchildren and leadership, and how being within the faith-based community, we can create better spaces to support one another, or educate one another on some signs to recognize. That way we can prevent, and we can educate, and we can pave a way for the next generation who are within that faith-based community to feel loved and supported while still on their spiritual journey. So within MONSE, yes, our goal is to really tap into the entire community of Baltimore, but it's been my passion to really focus on targeting the faith-based community, which I feel is a little silent in this corner. And then throughout the year of 2023, and I'm sure y'all have tapped into the news and see all the crime that's happening within our within our youth in Baltimore. And ever since the beginning of the year, partnering up with One Love and really tackling, educating our youth in the city on healthy and unhealthy signs, and working with some faith-based organizations and their youth groups and organizations like Ishshah's Place, and connecting MONSE to some youth group centers has been really, really fruitful. So this is a great platform for us to really get out what we're doing. And if you're someone in the community looking for some resources, maybe you're in the community looking to bring the space to have the convo. You want this conversation within your organization. And so that's why we're here today. So definitely reach us out in the comments if you're someone looking to get in contact with MONSE, the Intimate Partner Violence Prevention Team, or anyone within that space. Or if you've got questions for our faith-based leaders here who can really tap you into that resource if that's your area.
Yeah. Shout out to Gail. The comment just popped up. So this conversation is very important. And it is, because I think sometimes people don't realize that they're even in a domestic violence relationship. Like sometimes you might think it's normal to you, especially if you've been with this person, let's say since like high school. And this is all you know from high school to now being an adult. It seems normal, but you don't know sometimes what isn't if you're so used to the norm. And I'm excited that MONSE is being connected with these faith-based organizations, because the city of Baltimore needs to see that connection. And MONSE, I've seen the boots on the ground, so I'm excited for this connection tonight. Both Reverends, I want to talk to you on why you started to do work with domestic violence, intimate partner violence survivors. Like, why was it important to you? When did you start doing it? Rev Bev, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. So I am a survivor, 14 years removed. And I had a friend, unfortunately, who lost her life to domestic violence. And so for me, this is more than a business. It's not simply a business for me. It's not something that I woke up one morning and thought, I think I'm going to do this, right? So it's ministry. And so as I was called into ministry of preaching the gospel some time ago, 2008, 2010, my pastor, Dr. Lance, asked the question of me and other ministers who were in training at that time. I attend again Mount Lebanon Baptist Church. And so the question that he asked was, what is it that you're called to do? And if it wasn't a ministry that was already in existence, he asked the question, how do we make it happen here? How do we make it one? And so this now organization started actually as a ministry at my church. And so we started in the ministry, just simply we wanted to get the word out. So we were sharing awareness about domestic violence and how it affects the faith community in the same way that it affects society, right? That we're not exempt, that there are women and men in our churches that are victims and survivors. And so we started by facilitating presentations for churches and women's ministries. And we worked with the Speakers Bureau actually at the House of Ruth Maryland. And so we did panel discussions with the faith community and officials from around the city. We worked with community organizations and health fairs, and we did everything that we could to get the word out, right? But we knew that God had required more of us in this ministry. That was something we already knew. And so we knew that we were heading towards something bigger and something stronger. And so in 2021, Ishshah's Place, the woman's place, became incorporated. And that was really during the height of the pandemic. So we incorporated in 2021. And it took us a little bit of time because of the pandemic to get our nonprofit status, our 501c3 status. That happened in the spring of 2022. And so we're off and running. Ishshah, the name Ishshah is the Hebrew word for woman. And so it is the woman's place. As much as society, we believe, as much as society wants to tell women who we are and what we can and cannot do, as much as there are forces and entities that still want to control us and tell women that we can't do what we can and can't do with our bodies. No, Ishshah's place is the woman's place. It is the place where women are affirmed in all of her humanity, right? She can be a mother and hold a corporate office. She can be a wife and a life partner. She can be a worshiper and a teacher and a preacher. She can think and make decisions with others and for herself as well. Ishshah's place is the place where the woman is free to be all of whom she is, to stand in her truth, to live free from abuse, right? So Ishshah's place by design is a place that seeks to meet the needs of and affirm the value of women and girls who have survived and are surviving the dangers of IPV or intimate partner violence. You'll hear those words exchanged both ways, intimate partner violence and domestic violence. And at Ishshah's place, we actually prefer to use the term survivor rather than victim. We believe that if you're still here, you are a survivor. So that's how we came to this work.
I love that because, so many times, and even myself, I'll say, oh, you're a victim of domestic violence because that's just the word that kind of comes automatically is a victim. Like you're going through it right now, but you're also surviving through it because like you said, you're still living. So I'm going to rearrange my vocabulary and start saying survivor instead of victim. So I thank you for that. Dr. Chandler, let's talk about you as well and your starting point with domestic violence and helping out our survivors.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And I love that you are immediately going to rearrange that vocabulary.
Rearranging it.
That's right. That's what this is all about. I love that. So I came to this work. I started this work in 2008. I started with being on the community advisory board. So in my heart and soul, I'm a community organizer. I am a community person in my soul. I began as an educator and clergy person. So like Beverly, I am a clergy survivor of domestic violence. And I started out, my mentor, Dr. Tricia Ben Goodley, who is seminal in this work for violence against women, and particularly in the Black community. She was working on a grant through Howard University, where she's a professor emeritus. And it was for engaging men of faith in healthy relationships. And so it was right up my alley with being a person of faith and a practicing clergy. And I really wanted to get involved and just understand about healthy relationships, right? So we needed to use the terms healthy relationships and people of faith. And so I really just came to love this work. And several years into doing this work in a volunteer status, I decided that I wanted to really transform my career choice, my life, really dedicate my life to this work. And so I had some wonderful mentors, Reverend William Lamar. At the time, he's now the pastor of Metropolitan AME Church. And, he said, you should really just go for it. You're really passionate about this. I'm a scholar practitioner. And so that's, you can find some of the articles and some of the research that I've worked on. And so he said, you should really do this. There are people who need to hear this message. There are people that need to know that there are women who look like you. Because like Beverly said, there's been a picture painted of a victim of domestic violence. There's been, you see what I call the bus stop poster of the women. You see the black eye and, call this number for help. And we, as in our community, we say, that's not me. That woman on that bus stop, that's not me. I fought back. So I don't need your services, right? And what was missing was that there was a disconnect between, as you said earlier, am I actually in a relationship that would qualify as domestic or interpersonal violence? And so the more I came to do this work, I realized that there just was an increased need for credible messengers from the faith community, someone who can say, I know what you're living through, or I understand, someone with the intersectionality. And so that's how I really became interested and started doing this work full time. I'm a consultant for the Office on Violence Against Women, Department of Justice. And so I go all around the country doing this work because there are just not enough of us that are doing this work that look like me, that speak to our communities and are willing to take that leap and make that connection with the faith community.
Thank you so much for what you do. And thank you all so much for what you do. And like you said, women that look like you, because like we will see a poster of a Black guy. We're like, this is definitely not me. And
Right.
us as Black women, we are strong. Like, you know, we're like, well, because I'm gonna hit that, like whatever. But at the end of the day, this is you and not in that form.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I actually start my training sometimes and I say, forget about the face of domestic violence, forget about the face of interpersonal violence that you think you know. And I turn around and I say, this is the face of interpersonal violence. This is the face of a survivor. And, you know, Beverly and I both, we sit on Maryland State's domestic violence fatality review state implementation team for the Survivor Advisory Board. And when people see us, they're thinking that we're here for something completely different. They don't think we're on the Survivor Advisory Board. And then we tell them, this is the face. And when you want to know why people are not coming to your organization for services, or people are not making that phone call they're not making that 911 call, one of the reasons is because you're not looking at this beautiful woman of color thinking that she's in need of your services. And so that's some of what we do when we talk about survivorship.
Yeah. Ashley, I want to take it back over to MONSE because I want you to explain the risk factors of intimate partner violence and some prevention efforts that MONSE has available for Baltimore City.
Thank you so much. I do want to mention Reverend Beverly and Dr. Sakima. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and for what brought you to the position you're at, because it is God sent. You were selected and chosen to now be the hands and feet to now provide for those who may not know the signs. And it's an honor to be here because I too am someone who has been hand selected out of a awful experience that could have led me in a very different path as a college student. So I am almost 7 years removed from my intimate partner violent relationship. And by the grace of God, leading me to community, because what I've found is isolation. And I think that was something common that I was hearing without the word, but not feeling like you had someone to talk to, or that the people who saw you could believe the things that would happen. And I think it's so, so important that y'all shared that. Thank you so much. Which is why we're here, right? Why MONSE is putting so much effort into our city and emphasizing how being preventative is going to help us in the long run, not waiting until something, I call it like the chaos, in order to make a change. Being able to recognize signs and knowing where to go or who to call or what to do. And the works that I've been providing within MONSE space for the city, how I've been serving our youth and our community, is with workshops, helping youth and teens recognize the healthy and unhealthy signs of relationship building, period. And how when you could recognize these signs early on, they will translate as you grow, as you become into a relationship intimately with your partners and prior to marriage. Because I think something, and reverends, please chime into this, because something that I've heard while starting my faith-based journey, because I didn't start mine until my post relationship. So there is when I discovered, oh, my value and my worth. Now it's worth talking about, because it wasn't worth talking about with folks that looked like me, because we're strong. Persia Media, yeah, we're strong women. Coming from a Hispanic background, it was very normalized. The way cultural dynamics are in the household, I think that's also really important to recognize. Culturally, faith-based, and then a combo of all of that. When you're not appraising your worth, your value, if you're seeking validation and a source of joy and peace from a person, that can easily be taken. So definitely putting the stake in there, finding a community that can pour into you, see your faith through the dark is so needed. And I see Miss Beverly, I've seen it in action. All right. I've been with her and I see and I hear her passion. I've been honored to meet Reverend Dr. Sakima as well through this work, because I'm also a part of that blueprint of where could I have gone? There were not things that are available today when I needed that 7 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. And I know Reverend Beverly stated about 14 years removed from something that she's experienced and had to witness. So the things that Baltimore City has got going on that MONSE is like ecstatic to share, and honored to connect with you, Persia, and your team, mentioning how can we amplify this? Well, we've got things like ICare Live to highlight the works of our faith-based community, to let folks who are on Facebook, Instagram, seeking services or at least avoiding things they're going through, right? Well, this is a platform because everybody can benefit from this, not just someone in it, not just someone doing it, but you've got relationships across the board, right? And why not love your sister or brother, figuratively and literally, a little bit better, or like know how to support them in their times of crisis, right? So we're trying to help those indirectly, directly impacted by violence through conversations, creating the space. That's our first step. Let's make the space to talk about it. Let's normalize it, because no one's exempt. We talked about that, right? That was the first thing we said here. No one's exempt from it. You can't make enough money to like not get involved in it.
Right.
Even those causing the harm, right? Like you can work at a white collar job and live in Homestead or up Charles Village, right? In those very, very old money homes, or you can live right in the depths of the city, right? In the heart of the city. Anybody can be impacted. So definitely connecting to organizations like Ishshah's Place, like House of Ruth, like One Love, like any of these abuser, intimate partner violent programs to help folks on both aspects here change behaviors, recognize that, as well as those in the space of knowing how to step away when it's time, or if you're not ready to step away, that's okay. But how can we change what's not working here, right? We're not here to say you need to leave or you need to stay. We're here to meet you where you're at and help you, whether that is getting into a program to change behavior, or maybe that's a form of and something like the visitation center. Let's discuss families here. Children are impacted in this a lot, right? Mothers expecting, the most one of the most marginalized groups here that are really injured with domestic violence in the faith-based community, because it is common to stay, always to stay, work it out. That's what you hear growing up. So definitely making the space to share. There's things that need to be worked on and identified, right? And your faith-based community, yes, you can have hope, but the actions that need to take place, the perception and the thoughts, that needs to happen. So definitely connecting with organizations virtually, in person. MONSE is available to help bridge those gaps. And you can reach us at our website. You could reach us on platforms like this or on socials like Instagram and Twitter. And I'll definitely be able to drop in all of those plugs later on, Persia, for those who are in the comments. If you're needing anything from MONSE, definitely put that in the chat. We can connect you email, we can connect with you phone, we can also on socials. But there's something for you, right? Whether that's family, whether that's those in it or causing it, or those looking to stay or leave. You know, we're looking to make the space to discuss it and then work on that next step.
Yeah. And I want to go back to the healthy and unhealthy signs, because some people might not know what those are, but also as a comment that popped up on here and asked if there was a PSA involving this. Yeah. PSA campaign to bring attention to this. If not, there should be. Now, like you said earlier, Ashley, the ICare campaign. this is a huge campaign that we're really trying to push in Baltimore City, thanks to the mayor's office as well, because it shows that we do care. And there's so many different organizations that really care. And so that's a big campaign. I would say that, we're on ICare Live right now doing this in this Hope After the Storm. So this is, if you're looking for something like that, this is exactly what you're looking for. And when we do an ICare campaign, sometimes it's not about domestic violence. Sometimes it's just really about showing people that's doing great things in the community. Because you might not know people that are doing these great things. You're like, oh, hey, we have that resource here in Baltimore City, right up the street. So that's what it's all about. So to answer that, but I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on any other campaigns for this.
I think one of the things that we find increasingly is October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And that's really when we have the ability to get the word out, so to speak, about what domestic violence looks like. Because one of the things you said earlier, Ashley, that is really true is people don't know where to go. They don't know, 7 years ago for you, 14 for Bev, many years ago for me, we didn't know what assistance was available. And one of the things that happens during our flagship months, right? So April, October, whether it's teen dating awareness or domestic violence awareness, interpersonal human trafficking awareness months, is agencies will do pop-ups where these types of things like ICare, they'll do more workshops, they'll be out in community, which arguably we need to be all the time, right? We need to be making those inroads. But that's really when more information is handed out. And then people learn that things like economic abuse, coercion, withholding birth control, those types of things are still domestic violence, right? So that people learn that it's not just the physical violence that we often are looking for when we're looking for domestic violence. You're also looking for emotional abuse, undermining someone's self-esteem, limiting interaction with family members, so causing isolation, causing someone to religious abuse, so not allowing someone to go to their place of faith, their house of worship, religious abuse, making use or misuse of the religious text to say these are the things you should do or shouldn't do based on these texts. And so in those months, those kinds of PSAs, if you will, are available more readily. But one of the things that MONSE has done that I readily applaud, as well as Radio 1 and ICare, is getting this message out more frequently and through a greater number of avenues. Because the more you hear and or see and or are scrolling and you see it come up on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, the more you begin to think or internalize, oh, wait, that might be me. That might be something I want. It works the same with the shoes they're advertising to you on Instagram over and over again. And you're like, dang, maybe I do need these soft little shoes that I can roll up and put in my bag. It's the same idea. You see the same thing over and over again, but it makes you think, maybe that does apply to me. Maybe the fact that, I'm not allowed to go to work, or, that my partner is really concerned about the length of my skirts. Suddenly, when we were dating, he wanted the skirts even shorter than ever. But now that we're together, it's don't wear that, don't go here, and oh, that person's looking at you. So that's something to consider. And yes, the faith-based community needs to do more PSAs. One of the campaigns that I worked on was that once a month, clergy partners would have a sermon or sermonette or PSA right from the pulpit. So clergy, someone had to agree that there would be a message that violence was intolerable from somewhere in the church. And that worked amazingly well, because before that, no one was even thinking about that. We had rules about how often other things need to be talked about, but there was no rule about how often violence in the family needed to be addressed. And so that caused a decrease in violence against women in particular in this denomination.
Yeah. And if I could just piggyback on that just for a little bit, Dr. Kim, thank you for saying that, because It's not something that we talk about in the church, right? We don't talk about it. We don't speak about it. We don't teach about it. We don't preach about it. It is something that we do at Mount Lebanon. So my pastor preaches about it. I preach about it. We stand in the pulpit. We talk about the events that we have coming up as a ministry. We talk about the things that Ishshah's place is doing. We have signs posted in our restrooms where people can get help. One of the things that we did yesterday was hand out some special literature along with Mother's Day gifts. And so, we try to keep it in the forefront, even though it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October. All year long, we need to keep it in the forefront so that people know that help is available.
Yeah, I want to circle back also. We're going to get back to the healthy and unhealthy. But now, because Dr. Chandler, what you said earlier, talking about the skirt length and how it was okay then, but then now we're dating, now you got to be a midi skirt instead of a mini. I hear a lot. What did she do to deserve that? Or what was she wearing? How can we shift the culture away from blaming the survivors instead of, blaming the person who is doing the shaming? How can we shift this culture? Because I think that's the problem too, because so fast we're like, well, what did she do? And why does it have to be that response? What would you say, Dr. Chandler?
Thank you. So it's amazing enough that we still have to have this conversation. Right. So thank you for that question, because one of the things I say, and I still work directly with survivors. Beverly and I both do. We make it a point to still work directly with survivors. And one of the things we say is there is nothing you did to deserve this and nothing you could have done differently. When people have a mindset that they want to maintain both power and control, or any combination of they want to be in control of you, in control of the family, in control of the situation, in control of the finances, they will generally leverage whatever it is that they want to leverage to make that happen. And so whether it is the length of the skirt, the food is not hot enough, you weren't wherever you said you were going to be, or you left this house, it's never going to be good enough. And so even when friends and family members or other people on the outside looking in, I was talking to some young people recently, working with a group of young people, and they said, well, it was her fault because she knew she had a man and she was listening to another man, kick some game to her, spit some game to her. And I had to remind them that it is never a survivor's fault that someone else chose to lose their temper and whatever, do whatever the thing that he did, which was too egregious for me to share here. But that idea of victim blaming needs to change. We need to really get in the mindset of there is nothing that anyone can do to deserve any form of abuse. It's simply non-negotiable.
Yeah, it's not. and I think that we have to do better to shift that, because that's the automatic type of response to whatever it is. And it also makes the person feel like thinking to themselves, okay, well, maybe I did do something wrong, or maybe I should have put on a longer skirt. No, girl, show off them legs. Like, listen here. Like, if this is what you want to wear, this is what you choose to wear, then do that. Don't let anybody tell you how you can dress, how you can't dress, what you should wear with your hair. If you want your hair down, long, straight, curly, whatever it might be, that's what you want to do with your hair.
Right.
And I think we have to make sure that we take into account that it's our bodies and it's us. And
absolutely.
I love when you mentioned Reverend. Did I hear Rev Bev call you Dr. Kim? Is that?
I was gonna say, are we friends? Can I call you Dr.
Kim? Okay, can we make that a thing? Okay. I love when
in terms of endearment.
You made a statement and you said it's a non-negotiable. There's no excuse. You said that just now, and it's so true. Although it's non-negotiable, it's zero tolerance. It is 100% preventable. And I think if folks can instill that mindset in their head, if the community can take one thing out of this convo and anything out of what I share tonight, out of all the things, of course, at the end, I'll plug in our contact. But if anything else, the things to take out of this is that it is 100% preventable. And MONSE's working with those across the city, all of the agencies that that can help us identify gaps and identify high risk folks, whether causing or involved in harm. We're trying to get in there. So because it is preventable. And it may be something where within a family unit, if we're looking at small communities, it is generational, AKA why we call it a public safety, a health problem. It is something that like an addiction, it can travel within generations within a family if we're not breaking that cycle early on. So yeah, making the spaces, making sure that we can instill the perspective that this can be changed. Right. And not, this is how I am. This is how it's always been. This is what I know. This is how I want to stay and be. We got to change that mindset. And the only way to do that, right, is you're only going to receive info from those you love and trust. And within a community, we want to do that as well. Right. So within your small communities, finding those peers and professionals and knowing how to support one another. Right. And I see in the chat, people are mentioning both female and male are in the comments. And I love to see that because this is a conversation for all, right? Not just women. This is a great conversation to have with our men, with our young boys. So that was awesome, Dr. Kim, that you stated that. I think I wanted to plug in that it is non-negotiable, 100%, like zero tolerance. I get that. It's also 100% preventable.
It is.
Yep.
And if I could just piggyback on something you just said, Ashley, when you think about the public health concerns, the amount of extra hospital visits that are caused by IPV, when you think of the extra resources that go to mental health concerns caused by IPV, when you're looking at long-term health concerns, long-term disease diagnoses that are caused by IPV, we all need to consider this is not a private matter. One of the issues that the faith community has bumped up against for far too long is the conversation of, well, that's a private issue. What happens in your house really just needs to stay in your house. We know in our community that we just believe that, generationally, right? What happens in your house stays in your house. But that's actually not the case because it spills over into days lost from school for children. It spills over into poor performance. It spills over into so many things that, it really does become a public health concern. Employers are now realizing that their people who work for them are missing days from work. Yeah. So many extra days lost from work when it comes to things that are preventable. Exactly what you said, Ashley. IPV is 100% preventable, and it is a public health crisis. We are now at crisis levels. When we're now talking about these mass shootings, so many mass shootings stem from interpersonal violence. Yep. That's the nexus. And so, it's not a personal issue. It's not a private issue. And one of the things that we are doing wrong, and I know, Persia, you said we're going to get back to this, but that is one of the things we're doing wrong. When people do present in houses of faith with this concern, unfortunately, when people are not properly trained, some of our clergy members are doing it wrong. They're saying, go home and pray about it. They're saying, go back to your husband or wife. And they're saying things like, well, we'll have you in for couples counseling. This is not IPV, domestic violence is not something that can be couples counseled away, nor is it something that can simply be prayed away.
Exactly.
Yep. And I saw a comment that popped up and said, what can men do to prevent domestic violence? And also men and families, like, what can aunts do? What can moms do? What can dads do? Like, how can a family member help somebody who is going through domestic violence or has passed it and, even is some years out of the relationship, but still needs that extra support? How do you start the conversation? That really is the question. Like, Beverly, how do you start a conversation with somebody who is currently going through it, or you might even think that they are?
So you make sure that you, first of all, create a safe space for them, right? So we are not pointing fingers. We're not telling people what they need to do. We're not saying, girl, you I know something going on, you need to leave, or, or things like that. What we're trying to do is to be an ally, right? To be a resource for them. And so if you know that somebody's going through something, you can certainly offer resources, try to offer help where they can get help from. If you don't know that they are actually going through something, you can still be there for them. Still start the conversation by creating some sort of relationship with them, right? So allowing them to get to know you, and allowing them, you to get to know them, and allowing them to then eventually open up and maybe share. The way that we can ask that men help, I saw that question as well. How can men help? You can be our allies. If you know that you are witnessing it, that you have friends that are abusive, you can speak out against that.
Yeah.
You can speak out against, whatever you might see that's going wrong, or tell somebody, no, that's not what we should be doing. That's not how we treat our women. I'm looking at another comment that's coming in.
Yeah.
So we create allies, and we create friendships and partnerships. That's the way we can start.
Yep. And so Lindley, pretty much this comment also, and we can add on to the healthy and unhealthy signs to this as well. What warning signs can family members or friends look for? How can we help women who deny the issue exists? Because it is a lot of denial, because they say, hey, I'm fine. Like, how can we do that? I know you said be allies, be there for them. But then let's say you're there for them, and they still are like, you say, hey girl, I want to come to your house and let's just have a glass of wine out back. And no, it's not good, but it's never good. It's Friday nights is never good for her. Yeah. How can we knock down the door and say, hey, let's get together, without feeling like you're pressuring them, or you're putting more of a burden on them, or feeling like a burden? How do you even get there?
Mm-hmm.
So you really want to start by creating pathways, just really creating pathways to conversation. Mm-hmm. Generally, when something hurts or something is sore, just think about your physical body. Mm-hmm. If it's sore, you don't want to touch it all the time, right? And so you might want to touch around it, but you don't want to directly touch that sore spot. And so doing other things that are surrounding, if it's someone that you have children in common, you want to do things around, you have children in common. You want to do things like, go out, go take the children to the zoo, be in spaces where that person would just normally be, have regular conversations, just really be in alignment, be open and accepting, listen, be prepared. And then whenever someone does share whatever it is, however small it is, just believe them.
Yeah.
Just believe however small it is, however outlandish it might be, just believe them. And then because you have an inclination that something might be going on, be prepared. Yeah. So prepare yourself in advance, do a little research, figure out what some warning signs are, figure out what some red flags are. Do you have a good friend who used to love to go eat out all the time, and now she can't, like you said, used to get that glass of wine, now she's not?
Isolation.
Maybe get to the bottom of why is that? Maybe there's some financial abuse going on. Maybe she no longer has her debit card. Maybe she no longer even has access to her own bank account for her own finances. Maybe she can't go because, there's a control on how much gas she can use or what time she can be out. And so there are all types of things that people who cause harm, also known as abusive partners, are using that we wouldn't even imagine. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's an air tag on her car or on her person. Maybe when she's out, she has to be recording everything she does. Like her phone, it might be actually recording her conversation. So think about ways to be creative in how you reach out. And even if it's not you. So I referenced earlier about the teenagers that I work with. I had great inroads having conversations about Meg Thee Stallion and all the things that went on. And, I just have conversations about other people and other people's stuff, not them and their stuff. And they don't want to talk to you about them and their stuff, but they will talk about other people. And it'll help you get the perspective of what they think, what they believe is acceptable, and whether they feel like there may be a way out of the situation. Right. Or whether they think that, it's a dead end street. And then just create those pathways, like Ashley said, there are so many resources right now that are available. MONSE has so many great resources.
Yeah.
And so just begin to have those resources available.
Yeah. One of the things that Dr. Sakima is saying, Dr. Kim, is she's talking about isolation, which is very common. So it may be someone that you know that you used to hang out with, and you said they stopped hanging out. We can't have a glass of wine. Every time you ask them to do something, they can't. They stop calling. They stop making, visits. And so even though they are being isolated or they're not reaching out, you continue to reach out and check on them.
Yeah. I would love to chime in here as well, Persia. They did so awesome as far as ways to recognize and how to support a friend. And I just would love to chime in if anyone that's listening and tuning in is looking for a leaving plan, a breakup plan, or if you're in that relationship, MONSE also has resources directly on the website. You can see we have a violence prevention plan, safety planning, which is very, very useful for yourself and for someone else. Dr. Kim mentioned be prepared. That is, if you want to make that space to have the convo, be prepared for what's about to come down. If you've got that trust and bond, that way you can take the next step, whether that is connect that friend to a resource, whether that's to get that friend in a program to change behavior, whether that's to get your children safe, right? Or there's tons of things. But those, if someone's listening in right now and recognizing something and it's on your heart, and you'd like to write a number down, this is our victim support hotline number, and it's great for anyone to access. It's 410-929-5488. And that's a great way that you can speak to someone. If you are experiencing harm right now, maybe you believe someone close to you is, or someone is. And we also have a website and an email address for the public to reach us at, whether it is directly or indirectly. And that's MONSE, MONSE, I know I have it right here in my name, .victimsupport@baltimorecity.gov. And those are two ways to connect with folks like myself on the Intimate Partner Violence Prevention team, or in general within our MONSE Victim Service Squad, to connect you, support you, make a space for you to speak on that. And this, I saw some comments coming in like, well, how can you recognize? How do you know what to keep an eye out for, Ash? Like, how do I do this? How do I bring this back to the community? Well, we are, as MONSE, we partnered up with One Love, like I stated earlier, and they have an incredible curriculum. And I know Beverly and I have worked together to reach out to some youth to share with them the signs of healthy and unhealthy relationships. Isolation is one of the most common ones that I hear within our teens and youth within 2023, all different forms of that. So if you're looking to have workshops at your community, within your agency, at your church, your faith-based, whether it's with the youth or with the staff, I mean, everyone can gain from this conversation. We are delivering workshops, and you could reach myself or anyone on our team, like I stated earlier, at monse.victimsupport@baltimorecity.gov. And I'll also leave us on later on with some phone numbers if you're looking, because I'm seeing the fire chat, and I love it. I'm seeing Franklin and Toya and Lindley and Musa, and I'm really ecstatic to be able to take this conversation, because right now we're just planting the seeds. Because this is not a one and done combo, y'all. You might take this combo, bring it to your ministry, your neighborhood, your kids' youth group. You might take it to your college campus football team meeting, right? You might take this conversation and it could start. And like we said earlier, I loved your reference, Dr. Kim. I'm gonna have to use that one with the kids. When you've got a bruise, you don't want to tap on it right away. Let's get around it. And that's what we're doing within MONSE on these workshops. We meet the kids where they're at. We want to know, you're the professionals, you're the youth in the city. Let me know what I need to know to help. And by me, I mean the entire ecosystem of public health. These are all types of folks here that want to support agencies like House of Ruth, Ishshah's Place, agencies like Turnaround with support services for survivors and those causing harm. So whether you're in it now, experience it live, whether this has happened to you 10 years ago, whether it's happening to your girlfriend next door, there's support. So let's work together as a unit, make more spaces like this. And instead of just talking about it, let's make some baby steps to prevent That way, those baby steps become strides, and then that becomes normalized. That's the goal.
Yep. And it was a comment on here. Can you put the number in the chat? Just on Facebook, or just so they can kind of have it. And you can call the number if you don't want to comment right now, because not everybody wants to be on here commenting things like that. But when you're in church and the pastor says, hey, if anybody wants prayer after, everybody close your eyes, raise your hand, or stand up so we know it's you. We can have somebody come tap you after. This is that. Okay.
This is that.
So, call and really make your voice heard. And even if you just need somebody to talk to, there's so many different resources to have that connection if you feel like you don't have it. Ashley, can you tell us about the Baltimore City Visitation Center? I know you talked a little bit about it earlier. How can, we get there? How what are the fees? Is it anything, is it free? Are we paying for it? And what type of cases are considered?
That is a great question. I'm so glad you brought that back, because that brings in the family aspect. So the visitation is a program that MONSE has initiated with the family tree. And we have spaces for folks that have children when the court, right after your trial, and if there is two parents that one parent is not to see the child for whatever the case is, we are providing a space, a safe almost, I don't want to call it a transaction, I'm sorry, but it's a safe space where one parent who has the custody of the child can bring the child, and they have resources if needed. They're being monitored, and the fees there are not one that the families would have to take care of. This is stuff that the judge is providing. It's an opportunity for the relationship to stay and to really work on building the relationship, right? And we have tons of families, and we actually just celebrated an anniversary this past week where the mayor was able to be present and just honor those who've been working there 5+ years. So there's no cost. That's not anything that we want folks to consider. They don't have to pay additional with all the other things that they're working on in their lives. This is just a tool to help relieve some additional stress, give an opportunity to still build relationship with the child, also in a safe place. So the parent who has custody is not worried or feeling as though they're not safe, let alone their child not being protected. And in that setting, there are, like I stated, resources available. So if whichever party is looking for something additional, like abuser intervention programming, like support groups, like those who are with custody child, maybe services for child and parent. We've got fathers and children, mothers and children that utilize the services. It's not just one person, and you have access all the way until that children is born, until they're, I believe, over 18 or at least 18.
Yeah. I want to take it over to Reverend really quick. What were you going to say? Reverend Beverly, were you going to say something?
I just wanted to address the question about how do we get workshops in our faith communities or in our churches. And so we definitely know that one of the first places that survivors turn to for assistance are their faith leaders, right? And so that's another reason why we're partnering with MONSE, and our partnership is so important because we know that pastors and clergies and faith leaders, I'm going to use a COVID term that we learn to love so much, are frontline workers, right, in this effort. And so we want to equip them with best practices and resources when survivors show up. So we have an event that's coming up in June. We're partnering with MONSE in this aspect as well. It's called Safe Sanctuaries. It's happening on June 16th. Where we have partnered with MONSE to invite domestic violence service providers. We're inviting elected officials and the faith-based communities, pastors, clergy, leaders, survivors. Dr. Kim likes to say, lottie-dottie and everybody. Come together and join as partners to end domestic violence. So we want to create a survivor toolkit, if you will, and prevention mechanisms to help faith leaders help survivors. So pastors, we don't want you to go it alone. You shouldn't go it alone. Dr. Kim talked about praying and sending them back with prayer. We want you to pray with them. And then we want you to send them to professionals who are trained and expert in helping survivors. If they had a terminal illness, you would pray and you would encourage them to seek professional help. And so we don't want you to try and counsel couples or marriage counseling. Believe it or not, those things are harmful and not helpful. We don't want you to pray and tell him or her to go back and try harder. Those things are harmful. Those things are not helpful. So we want to provide survivors with safe spaces in our sanctuaries, and teens and young adults, as Ashley mentioned, with tools for healthy dating and relationships. So, we really just want to make sure that we begin to change the narrative in this regard. And so join us on June 16th at Mount Lebanon Baptist Church. We will be holding that forum there.
And I'm happy you said to change the narrative too, because a lot of people do go to their faith immediately if anything's going wrong. But then other people might say, I can't go to the church because I took a vow that said for better or for worse. And it's worse. So they're going to tell me to stick it out. They might think these things in their head, right? Or they might say, oh, they're going to judge me. The church is so judge. It's so many different things that people could think. So I'm happy that you're changing the narrative and your boots are on the floor and you're saying, hey, we've been through this. This is what we've been through. Allow us to help you. And the church is not maybe what you're thinking. So I'm happy that you're doing that.
Yeah. And thank you for that. Thank you for I'm sorry, Dr. Kim.
No. I was just going to say, and we do also need places like Safe Sanctuary to help faith leaders understand that some of what they've been teaching has been in error. And it's not that they are trying to cause harm. It's that they didn't know better. And when you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
And so we're grateful for the opportunity. We're grateful that people will allow us to come in. I wanted to do a part 2 to that because Beverly and I, as well as others who do this work with us, will go to churches. So don't think you only have to come, to canned events. If you're on this line and you are part of a congregation or a house of faith or whatever, and you say, you know what, we really need this in my community of faith. It's not that we'll only go to churches. We are non-denominational. Any religious community, any community of faith, any organization that needs a redirection or just some increased opportunity to serve survivors, we will be there. Because we recognize that the narrative that has been put forth thus far, a great deal of it has been in error. You're looking at survivors here who are here because we wish the services were available to us when we knew at some point that we were in need of assistance.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kim, for that. Yeah, I just want to say this very quickly, that for better or for worse, right? That's the thing that has kept people bound for such a long time. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I stayed for so long, and I stayed far too long. I cherished my vows for better or for worse, right? And, I had to start asking God at some point, is this the worst? Is this the worst? And am I supposed to deal with this as the worst? Right. But the more I began to engage with my faith community and my faith, I learned that is not the thing that God had planned for me. Right. Our faith tells us that God has plans for our good and not for our harm. And when you hold on to something like that and you get that in your spirit, like I did, you have to know when it's time to do what you have to do for you. You have to know when it's time to go.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Time went by so fast. I don't know how we got here. I felt like we just started, but let's give some good resources, some ending statements, just some tips and just anything that you want to kind of give before we wrap things up. Let's start with you, Ashley, and then we can go to Dr. Kim and then Reverend Beverly.
Yes. So again, my name is Ashley Rivera, and I'm here from MONSE. You can connect with us at the victim support number 410-396-0125. And I'll also throw in the chat, we have our website right at our homepage. That way you can place your contact information there, phone number and email. That's going to be at monse.baltimorecity.gov. There's a section right at the bottom. You can connect directly with the Intimate Partner Violent Prevention team like myself, or with someone within our victim services. And this is to either help connect you or someone you love to a resource referral. Maybe it's to have someone come and deliver a workshop like the things I'm currently doing on healthy and unhealthy signs. So let's get in contact, and you can reach us there, even on our social pages, Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. That's going to be Baltimore MONSE. So thank you so much all for tuning in, and I look forward to creating more spaces like this outside of tonight.
Yeah.
Just thank you. It doesn't have to be till death do us part.
Mm-hmm.
And so just remember that there is always, always a better way. What happens in that house doesn't need to stay in that house.
Mhm. Yep. So just thank you for having me. I agree with all that has been said tonight. I just want to say that if you're in immediate danger, please call 911. You can also reach out to the the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That's 24 hours a day. And that number is 800-1-800-799-SAFE. 800-799-SAFE. That's 7233. And you can also reach out to Ishshah's Place at 443-442-7810, 443-442-7810. And you can email us at info@ishshahsplace.org. And you can also visit our website, ishshahsplace.org. Thank you so much for having us.
Ladies, thank you so much for this conversation. You are all so strong. You're needed. You're valued in our community. And without you, this event would not be going on tonight. So I thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you to the mayor's office, MONSE, of course, for helping us kickstart this event. And this conversation needs a part two. Like we need to do a part, like an in-person type of
Next
thing.
to that.
We're outside now, right?
I love
We're
it.
outside.
We're outside. So we'll try to do a part two, but have an amazing rest of your night. And please make sure you use your resources if you need it, for those of you who are listening.